Joining us is KT McFarland, National Security Analyst from Fox News Channel. Good morning, KT.
Good morning.
So yesterday I'm dumbfounded to see a crawl across the bottom of the screen there while I'm watching Fox News, and it says, report U.S. surveillance flights to increase over Syria. KT, why are we letting our enemy know that we're increasing surveillance flights?
No, it's part of the administration's sort of public relations approach. Why did we let the world know that we tried and failed to rescue James Foley before he was beheaded? It's all sort of public relations spin that gets you through today's headlines, tomorrow's headlines, because there's major problems to come. I mean, by releasing, for example, the information that we had tried a rescue mission against James Foley, it had failed. What have we done? The administration signed the death warrant of all the other people held hostage, because now the bad guys know this is how they do it, this is how they try to get their intelligence. They know what our vulnerabilities are and what our sources and methods are, and so they can take precautions to do what they want to do. So it's the same idea that the administration, whether it's the bin Laden raid, and let's give you every last detail about it.
Yeah, let's make a movie about it so you see everything we do.
So we look really good, but no sense of what's been the consequences. I mean, I would have hoped we were flying surveillance drones and we had surveillance over what was going on in Syria a lot before day before yesterday.
So the speculation about this leak, though, and of course the Pentagon spokesman was pretty tight-lipped about it, but the speculation has been that this is a prelude to some airstrikes in Syria. Is that a good idea? Is that enough to try to stop what's going on with ISIS?
It's not going to be solved as easily as dropping a couple of bombs. It may have stopped ISIS's advance in northern Syria and northern Iraq as they were on their way to Kurdistan, and it may get after some of the weapons depots and the sanctuaries and the training areas in Syria, because there is no border now between Syria and Iraq. Just forget about that. ISIS is one country that spans the two. It would help a little bit, but it's going to be a much bigger problem. Why? Because the entire region is threatened. You know, if you look at sort of who we fought for the last decade, well, it's the Taliban, right? Well, all the Taliban really wants to do is control Afghanistan, maybe Pakistan, and have those people live under their harsh way of life. Then there's Al-Qaeda. Now, Al-Qaeda didn't want to run a country. They just wanted some space to have training camps so that they could come and destroy the West, destroy Americans, kill Americans, destroy American institutions. ISIS is different. They want to control countries. They want all the resources of a wealthy nation-state. They want to take more and more space for their own. They want to first take over the Middle East and the new caliphate, and then they want to take over the world. Now, we laugh at that and say, well, come on, take over the world. Are you guys crazy? Look at what they've done in 3 months.
Yeah.
They have gone from being a ragtag group of 1,500 thugs on fumes and living off of fumes of a few wealthy Gulf families supporting them in Qatar, and now they're the richest, best armed, one of the largest militaries in the Middle East, and they've got the momentum. People, Americans, Europeans, are rushing to their side to fight.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of that, that's the big headline today, is that we're learning about this American who was killed fighting on their behalf in Syria. His name is Douglas MacArthur McCain. He was a kid who grew up in Chicago, 33 years old now, and according to State Department spokesperson Marie Harf yesterday, this is a major concern. Here she is.
Probably the most concerning aspect right now is that an American could come back to the United States and try to promote their ideology here.
Well, promote their ideology, forget that. What about coming back here with a strap-on vest of a suicide bomb?
Yeah, this guy is somebody who, you've heard of ecotourism, or you've heard of people who take their vacations and they go with Habitat for Humanity and build
right, or they go on a mission of some kind, yeah.
Yeah, well, what these guys are doing is they're going on their vacation is to let's go to Syria, let's go to ISIS in Iraq, let's go kill some people. I mean, that's their idea. They're not terribly well trained, but they're quite motivated to take sort of a 2-week fun vacation in their idea of holy jihad. What I'm concerned about, ISIS warring in the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, the entire region, the Shiite versus Sunni. As far as we're concerned, you guys have been fighting for thousands of years. Why don't you just continue to kill each other? But we have two reasons why we can't let that happen now. Why? First of all, unless we find an alternative to Middle East oil, we're stuck, because how are we going to like the world where the world's oil, in other words, the world's economy, is in the hands of Russia, Iran, and ISIS? We better develop American energy oil and natural gas to be independent of them. And secondly, it's not just the American Mr. McCain who went to fight for ISIS. It's the thousands of European and American passport holders who are fighting there, who have announced they will bring the fight to the United States, to Europe, not just because they're going to blow themselves up, but because they're going to have resources. You know, terrorism is an expensive line of work. They're going to need money to set up cells, to do recruitment, to have attacks in the United States and Europe. And that's the concern, that ISIS doesn't stay in the Middle East. ISIS wants to travel.
Oh, God. And do we have any confidence that TSA and the State Department and the Defense Department, we know who these guys are? We're on top of them. I mean, we're now learning about this guy, and his Twitter feed certainly seemed pretty out there and open that he was fighting in Syria.
Well, remember about a month or so ago, there was an American who blew himself up by mistake in the ISIS region.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was an American. He had gone there to fight. He came back to the United States, and he went back to fight. We didn't even know he had come to the United States. So I think we not only do we have to get serious about ISIS and defeating them however we can there, not with U.S. boots on the ground. That'll never work. It didn't work in Afghanistan, didn't work in Vietnam, didn't work in Iraq. You got to get local sandals, Arab sandals in the sand.
Right, no boots, just sandals, yes.
But the other part of it is we got to get really serious about Homeland Security. Secure the southern border. Stop worrying about a granny who's on her way to Disney World and giving her the same TSA scrutiny as some young guy who has just gone multiple times to Syria and Iraq.
Yeah.
We've got to start focusing on the people with terrorist behavior, because if you're focusing on everybody, it's because we're politically correct, then you're focusing on nobody.
Yeah, and we constantly hear from the DOJ and from Homeland Security that they're really concerned about a domestic terror threat coming from a right-wing fringe group, and that really sort of sends the message that their focus is in the wrong place. One last question, KT McFarland, before I lose you. This story was shocking to me that these Arab nations went and did airstrikes in Libya, and the U.S. knew nothing about it. I'm not saying that they have to ask our permission, but generally speaking, in the international community, doesn't the U.S. get a heads up on things like that?
If your goal is to lead from behind, you will ultimately be left behind.
There you go. We'll leave it at that. Pithy and to the point. KT McFarland, always good to have you.